Hi, I'm Lindsay Zubek, and this is Grown to Lead, a podcast by the Plum Leadership Group. This show is about the art and science of leadership and the experiences that shape leaders along the way. Let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I have just finished you and your husband Three's amazing book, and I can't believe how much we think the same. So I know we're going to get into talking all about the book and all about your concepts of leadership, especially as it relates to people. But I just wanted to tell you that every word, every phrase, I was like, highlight, underline, it speaks my language and is exactly the type of framework that I incorporate in my leadership and with my clients as well. So,
yay. Well, we could talk all day then for sure.
We could. But I wanted to start to just hear about your journey. What has led you to what you do today and writing the book?
So I'm a farm girl from Northeast Iowa, which was kind of bizarre that I got into the country club industry and hospitality. But in college, I tripped on the Club Management Association of America, CMAA, and never went back. Just absolutely loved it. Started a job at a private club in Des Moines, Iowa, about 2 days after graduating college, and worked at several clubs around the country. Then was recruited to be a writer and to be the editor of the Private Club Advisor, which was one of the 4 main publications for the private club industry. And at first I just said no because I was like, I'm not a writer. Like, no, thank you. And it was my husband actually who was like, I think you need to think about this because you have a true passion for education and training, which I did. I always thought I would be a teacher. And so the Private Club Advisor became this really cool way to research and write and educate the industry. And during my time there, it really prepared me to be able to write the book. And I never thought I would write a book. I physically did all the writing, even though my husband and I wrote it together. Our collective theories and ideas and things and stories, but I never thought I would be a writer, but I did it. And wow, was it a big project, but I'm really proud of it. And then most recently, about 1.5 years ago, the owner of the Private Club Advisor passed away unexpectedly. And I decided to create a new version of what that publication was called Notable.
And what prompted the idea of people first leadership for organizations, and what prompted you to, as you do speaking, also you're really trying to promote that culture of people first. What prompted that?
So it really came from, I had just always kind of had the philosophy of like, I can't do everything myself. I need my team, right? I need employees to help me. And what ended up happening was working for a boss who thought the same thing and maybe even, a little bit more than that. And our philosophy was never members first at the clubs that we worked at. It was always employees first. And what ended up happening was so cool, which was we saw how we were able to turn around these really old, struggling clubs and where everything was going wrong, or they were very mom and pop. And we brought them into the 21st century and really got everything functioning at a high level. And so we saw that. But what really put us over the edge was seeing how people's lives were benefited from being part of that, and how people would come and tell us all the time, I loved working for you. And I know I left and took this other job, but it was the worst mistake of my life. I want to come back and work for you. And we just saw how that really impacted people and organizations. And so what ended up happening is we said, it's not that hard. What we're doing isn't that hard, but it's really easy not to do. And so that's where the book was really born from, was this idea of if we can do it, everybody else can do it too, but they need a roadmap to follow.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about the book as well, is that it gives you these 5 practical concepts so that you're able to implement it. And really it starts with, and something you talk about is hiring from the heart. What does that mean? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think, Lindsay, a lot of times when we're hiring people, it's sort of a check the box thing, right? Or I feel like sometimes we think it's an easy button. So,
Hmm.
oh, when I just hire a new chef, my life is going to be so much easier. I just need to hurry up and hire the new chef. Or, oh, if I could just hire an assistant manager, my life will be better and everything will be okay because I'll have this person. And so we put all this weight into just checking the box and getting that person in so that we can get on with all the other stuff that we have to do. And we get really hung up on the resume and where they worked in the past and their experience and whether they're qualified or not. And what hiring from the heart is really about is where you're just having a conversation with another human being and you're really digging into, hey, what are you looking for? What do you want? Do our values align? Could we work this? Like, is this something that feels good to both of us? Could we work together? Could we do this? And so hiring from heart is just really more about that and less about like so Lindsay, tell me about yourself, the prim and proper formality of
Yes.
the interview.
You speak my language. I spent a lot of years in recruiting, and it's really about getting to know someone, who they are, what makes them tick, not the scripted, polished, rehearsed. And I think that's fundamental, Jackie. And that's why I wanted to start there. Because
Yeah.
really, the concept of starting with employees first, it starts with the team that you're building and who you hire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you talk about employees being a precious resource. Really, they are usually the biggest line item on most organizations' budget. It can go on and on. They are the lifeblood, they are the organization, they create the culture, they are a precious resource. But how does that shift in the way you think about employees change the whole hiring, developing, retaining?
Yeah.
How does all of that connect?
Well, it's a little bit different of a philosophy than anybody's replaceable. And,
Yeah.
employees are a dime a dozen, or because that was, we heard stuff like that a
Yep.
lot back in the day. And that was the mentality. If you don't like it, get out. I got seven more people behind you that will be happy to have your job. And
Hmm.
what happened during COVID and the period after that is I think everybody kind of realized it doesn't matter how good our service is. It doesn't matter how good our product is. It doesn't matter how amazing our facilities are. If we don't have employees, there is nothing we're going to do to have a great member experience or a great customer experience or to have a thriving organization because it is all about the employees. And so that shift really comes into looking at employees differently and being more grateful and more respectful and more appreciative of their time and frankly them showing up, right? Like it is a big shift and we have to see them as an investment and a priority worthy of our investment and our time and our development and our care. And we're going to get into a lot more of that as we talk, but
Yep.
that's really what it comes down to is yes, your customers or your members are important, but they're really a byproduct of whatever you're doing because if you don't have employees who care and who love what they do and are passionate and invested in it, it really doesn't, your company's never going to be successful.
Absolutely. If they don't feel that
Mm,
care and that connection and that love,
yes.
and that's something that's a bit of a different concept that I wanted to talk about. You talk about love in
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, and it was really scary, just in all honesty, of whether we should say the word love because
Yep.
it really freaked a lot of people out talking about love in business. And people get the wrong idea right away of
Hmm.
like, wait a
Hmm.
minute, are you talking about like romance? No, what we mean is you love your employees almost like a parent loves their
Hmm.
children. And it's really about, I think so many times leaders think you work for me, you need
Right.
to do whatever I need you to do because you're there to support me. And I think when you love your employees and you think about it differently, you flip that to say, hey, I'm working for you. What can I do to make your life easier? I'm in service to you. And it's just such a different, philosophy and mentality. And it really just means doing what's right and maybe not what's easy or popular. It's really about, investing and caring and taking the time with people and showing, your true self with your employees.
Yeah, and it sounds like in practical terms, it is exactly what you said, adjusting to them, understanding them when you know them. Instead of, I'm the leader and here's how I work, it's like, I want
Mm.
to get to know Jackie and I want
Yes.
to adjust my leadership and my framework because I care, I love Jackie, right? And that will come
Yes.
out in the way that you're able to.
Absolutely. And you
Yeah.
don't have to attach any weird
Right.
awkwardness, when you're saying that. Like,
Yeah.
we kind of came at it honestly from a way of like, hey, let's normalize like
Yeah.
loving your employees. And so really that became a big, piece of the pie.
Yes, and I mention it too because it's something again I we could talk all day because it is so much what I believe in and what we believe in at Plum as well. When I work with a coaching client one on one, I know I have to love them and
Mm-hmm.
not in a weird romantic
Right.
crossing, but in a way that I
Yeah,
want their best interest.
absolutely.
And it's it can be a triggering word or term to people, but I think if they can really grasp the concept, everybody will see there's a benefit. And sometimes you choose, you might, as you're going through the hiring process, as you're going through who you want to work with, sometimes you find someone that, no, I don't think that I can find that connection. That's a great sign. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And we actually broke down love into loyalty, ownership, value, and excellence. So if anybody is feeling weird about saying love
Yeah.
in business, that you have some real words,
Mm.
to define what that really looks like. Yeah.
Right. Instead of the feeling that we all associate it with. And what's the ripple effect from that? When a company or leaders start from people first, when they start to love their employees, what impact does it have across
Mhm.
the
Well,
organization?
I love the saying, I think it's a big wake-up call, is you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I think when you look at it that way, of making sure every single employee in your organization is loved, whoa, how does that elevate everything? Then you look at your weakest link and you go, hey, our weakest link's actually pretty good. And the ripple effects, I mean, we literally could talk for an hour about just the ripple effects of when people show up ready to give their best. Just imagine what can happen to your organization. Imagine how people feel about going to work. It doesn't feel like going to work. You're excited. You get to go to work. And that's just a small piece. Obviously, when people are bringing their best and, they're inventing and creative and they're thinking like an owner, with that mindset, financially, your company is strong, your team is cohesive and collaborative, and your customers or your members are probably having extraordinary experiences. I mean, it truly is exponential and it just continues to grow and grow.
So something that I was thinking of as I was reading your book, and it's something I think that's on top of mind for a lot of everybody, is just AI, the advent of AI. How do you see AI interacting with the framework of people first? Is it something that is separate? Is something that it can be leveraged? If I'm
Yeah.
a leader, how do I either use or do I not? What's
Yeah.
your take on that?
I'm all for AI within reason. Should it be used as a tool to help alleviate some of the pressures of work? Like, I just always think of, and I won't name names here, but when you had to write a newsletter article for your member newsletter that goes out every month and you stared at the blank piece of paper for 3 hours to just get 5 sentences put together that didn't even really make sense. Now you can do that in 30 seconds, right? If you use AI, you can at least have
Yeah.
something, then you can kind of tweak or add. And so I hope people leverage AI's capabilities to get rid of some of the things that are a time suck, or the things that we can sort of automate a bit with using AI, to free ourselves up to have more time for our employees, to have more time to be on the floor walking around with people than trying to sit and, knock out 3 paragraphs for this stupid thing that I have to write, or the summary for the board report, or like whatever it might be. Using it that way, I think, is really powerful. I think if people try to remove themselves from everything they produce and only use AI, I think that's when it becomes kind of dangerous, and where we're no longer thinking or trying to put ourselves on the paper. We're only just using the AI version. I don't like that as much, but I think it certainly can be a benefit.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying to use it where it can create efficiency in operations so that you can spend the time, allow the time for more
Absolutely.
interpersonal interaction and connection.
Exactly.
So I want to take a shift and talk about your framework. So I want to talk about the 5-part framework that you've outlined that, again, I think is so applicable and practical for every organization and every team. And you start with credibility and you talk about something called false credibility. So
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like in practice? And
Yeah.
why is it potentially so damaging, especially in the hospitality industry, but damaging across the board?
Yeah. False credibility, I mean, is just a nice way to say that false credibility is really you're lying. It's not true. You're painting a picture of something that doesn't exist. And I think that would be, as an example, when you're interviewing people, you say, no, you don't need to work nights and weekends, or no, oh, we'll be happy to, work around your school schedule, whatever it might be. And then those things fall flat or those things don't happen. And I think what credibility really means is that you are an employer your employees can trust. And that really was elevated during the COVID times. And I know everyone's tired of hearing about it, but it was really true. The companies that were quick to fire people during that time when things got scary, they really showed who they were as employers. And they're probably still struggling to this day to build that back. And so your credibility is why you're a great place to work, why you're a great boss. And if you aren't really thinking about that and controlling that message, somebody else is.
Absolutely. And it's in every, it's the foundation of trust is in everything. And sometimes as leaders or business owners or GMs, you can't always share information. And that's okay to say, like, I
Hmm.
don't have the answer. It's okay to say, I don't have the answer. It's okay to say, I'll get back to you. It's okay to say, whatever it is, as long as it's honest and that builds trust and credibility. So the next pillar is candor. And I love the story that you offer. I think it's Tyler, the
Yeah.
busboy. Maybe tell me a little bit about that story, if you wouldn't mind, in your own words. And then how do you help employers find their Tyler?
Yeah. So thank you. This story was so a little behind the scenes thing. We fought over this story for my husband and I three because I loved the story and I knew that there was a message there, but it was really hard to write in that way because it was the message wasn't necessarily coming through. So we had to rework it multiple times. And three was like, "Can't we just find another story? I think we can find it." And I was like, "No, Tyler
Oh, I
is."
love it.
And
Yes.
and it's the story that we hear a lot from people that are like, "Oh, we love the Tyler story." I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." So anyway, what this story really is just kind of this silly story about when I was a young manager. We were looking for a busboy. So clearly not a super sophisticated position, but we'd had like 5 or 6 different kids. We were coming into busy season and we just needed a good fit. And this kid came in, his name was Tyler, and he sat down and he absolutely bombed the interview. Like, just, it was so awkward and uncomfortable because it was like he was trying to formulate what we wanted to hear. And he wasn't really, and it was just awkward and clunky. And it was like, oh my gosh, just like, talk normal, like get over the interview. And he was so nervous. And what ended up happening was three, we worked together at the time, came into the interview and was like, Tyler, why do you want to work here? Like, what about this club makes it like seem exciting to you? And it was like for a second he stopped thinking and he just said, it's so beautiful here. I just would love it. And long story short, we got him to relax and just open up and show us who he was. And when he did that, he confided in us that he just needed a place to prove himself and to belong because his father had passed away recently and he needed to be there to help his mom and support the family and he needed to be the man of the family now. And I got goosebumps and I'm trying not to well up with tears because it was such a powerful moment. And I wanted so badly to include that story because it was such a powerful lesson of we could have easily, after the first 15 minutes with this kid, been like, well, thanks so much for coming in. Good luck. See ya. And not wasted our time sitting there and trying to get to know him. But we really pushed and we forgot about the interview and just instead tried to see Tyler. And that's really where the magic happened. I mean, he was an incredible person who worked for us for 7 years. You're right. As a busboy position, he began to evolve and worked himself into other positions, but it was just such a powerful moment, really. And that's, I guess, Lindsay, what candor really is you're having a conversation, you're trying to see who someone is, and it's less about the framework of the interview and the structure of it all, and instead we're just having a conversation.
I also think it speaks volumes the fact that for a busboy position, a real entry level position, you have you as a manager and then three as the general
Yeah.
manager step in and take the time. And that's something you talk about in your book that you believe in, especially in a culture I think that is maybe struggling, taking the time to meet with everybody who's being considered to work there. So kudos to you and to three for doing that, because it's not something that I think a lot of leaders take the time to do. So it's not just in having someone have their guard down and connecting, but it's just the fact that you've shown up to be there. It speaks volumes. So the next part is cultivation. And I love that term. I maybe assume it maybe came from that farm girl of cultivating a farm,
Yep.
right? Cultivating farm, but it really means growth, right? That growth, internal, external. So what does true cultivation look like day to day, especially in a hospitality setting where everything is moving quickly, is evolving, there's a new event, there's a new holiday. How does that look like on a daily basis when things are so hectic?
Favorite stories in the book is about Gustavo, who was a busboy, same thing, and we like nurtured and developed him. But what he showed us was that when every person in the organization sees how much helping each other or helping a new person, what that really means and how important that is, it becomes everybody's priority. And it's so beautiful to witness that. I think what happens, Lindsay, just in all honesty, and I've been there guilty of sometimes we accidentally don't help each other because we're busy. We have our own stuff to do. We're running around like chickens with our heads cut off trying to get through stuff, especially in hospitality. And so we don't help because we don't want to or we don't want to take the time. And that sort of unintentionally kind of happens, I think. And then, of course, you have people that maybe intentionally don't help somebody else because they don't want them to succeed or they don't want them to be as good as they are or whatever it might be. But when everybody in the organization sees that their number one job priority is helping each other or helping a new person, everybody is all for helping each other win. I mean, that's why you show up. That's what it's about. And your camaraderie and your teamwork and your collaboration and your support and frankly, your employee happiness just elevates from there because nobody feels like they're having to do it on their own or that they're being thrown to the wolves, right? Which can happen very many times in hospitality,
Yeah.
especially.
It's that true ripple effect. I love that phrase of it's everyone's responsibility to help and support everyone around you. And then when you receive it, you give it back.
Right,
It's that ripple effect that really happens. And sometimes it's because I'm in this box. This is my job description. I'm not
right.
going to go outside of it. But when it starts to become cultural, that's when again the magic really starts to happen.
Absolutely.
So, commitment, that is your next framework. And it's something that I think a lot of organizations claim to have, but they don't always live it. Sometimes it's the word on the wall, but it's not the behavior that's being lived. So, what does real commitment to people look like? And how do leaders show up consistently and constantly living that commitment value?
So we say commitment is really about helping people own it and empowering them and encouraging them and supporting them and coaching them so they can own it. And I think sometimes what happens is we say that and then we turn around and we're really critical about things. Or when somebody fails, we point the finger or we're very judgy about, well, why did you make that decision? Or who gave you, permission to do that or whatever it is. And commitment is just where we want people to win. We've cultivated them to be able to take it on. And then we say, even, I want you to own it. I want you to take it on. I'm here if you need me, but I want you to own it. And I think that's hard a lot of times because our egos are there. And if somebody else is taking it on and maybe the light is shining on them and it's not shining on us, that can be kind of funky for people or can really be put people in a weird place if they allow that to happen. And instead, what if we just said, hey, I'm here to support you and I want my team to be as the best team that they can be. And it's not about me, it's about you. I think that's really what that looks like. And the truth is, though, it's a little easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, the word, but it's living it that can
Yeah.
be challenging. And like you said, there's a lot of personal ego, all those things that can kind of get in the way that you have to step it aside and truly love, care, cultivate, right? All those other pillars that you talk about. So the last one to round it off is care. How do you help organizations and teams demonstrate care in a way that's really meaningful and powerful, not just performative, not just for an act, but how do you do it where it comes from a real, centered, authentic place?
Yeah, this was one of the hardest chapters to write, just in all honesty, because when you sit there and say, well, describe to me, Lindsay, how you show someone you care about them. Well,
Yeah.
okay, how do you describe, as a boss, what do you do to show that you care? And it really took us a long time to dig into what that looks like and build that into something. But it is where we leave our ego at the door and we become a partner and we're focused on helping develop them and recognize them. And we have an awareness of ourselves and how we're acting and treating people. But really, I'm all about making things simple. And this is sort of the philosophy that comes out is that when you truly care, you recognize and embrace the fact that you are no longer just working together at work, you're working together at life. And when you see it that way, your perspective really shifts. So, whatever you're dealing with outside of work, Lindsay, if your dog died this morning, if your mom is sick, if you just moved across the country, for your husband's job, whatever it is, yes, I want you to be great when you show up in my four walls, but I'm also well aware that there's a lot going on outside of that that I want to talk to you about, that I want to see how I can support you in that. And that's been the simplest way for us to show and explain what care is it's where we're working together at life.
And recognizing that they're not just an employee number, they bring a whole person
Yeah,
who's got life experiences and things that are happening outside. And if we can recognize and not like, I don't want to hear about it. Like, yeah, I do
right.
want to hear about
I
it.
don't care
Once
what you
they
do on the
feel list,
weekend.
yeah, no, I do care. And
Right.
and when someone feels really listened to, heard, cared for, that's when they're often able to put it aside and show up. Right?
Yeah.
Like think they're gonna open a bag of mess, but it actually is something that's so freeing and people are able to bring more. So yeah, I love that framework and I appreciate how it can be challenging because some of this is difficult for people to recognize how to get the most out of your people, how to get the most out of your organization. It starts with people first.
Yeah.
And so if we work with a lot of new managers, Jackie, a lot of people that have been promoted from an individual contributor and then they're leading people. If you were to come in and give some advice to some of our new people managers who are like, oh, I love it. I'm into people first. I get the framework. What's one thing that you would recommend that they start with?
I'd say it's really just about dedicating the time and making the time to connect with people, to talk with people the priority, because it is so darn easy to get in focused on your inbox and be stressed about all the stuff that you have to do or the checklist that you got to get all the things checked off. And you're kind of like, oh, well, I don't want to go waste time, right? Talking to people or being out there asking questions. And the reminder just is that's what really matters is the connections and the relationships and the talking to people is more important than the emails and the reports and the stuff.
So true. So true. I remember one of my first management or leadership jobs. I had that backwards. I was like behind the computer, making sure all my emails,
Right.
no, get on the floor. Get
Yes.
on the floor and be with your people. That's so much more important. And
And
then
it's hard.
actually you
It's a
realize
hard juggle, but
it is a hard juggle. And you also realize when you spend the time with your people, you get less emails because usually
hmm
the emails are like the fires. You got less fires. So it
yes.
ends up being a bit of a circle. So, Jackie, what's one word that describes your leadership style?
Surprisingly difficult to just come up with one word, but
You can
empowering.
do more than one if you want.
I'd say empowering.
Amazing. So, what's a book or podcast besides your podcast, besides this one? What's a book, podcast, TV show that inspires your leadership?
One book was called Carry On Warrior by Glennon Doyle Mountain, and I read this years ago. But it was that book that inspired me to write a book. The reason was because she was authentically herself in the way that she wrote, and she wrote the book just like she talked. And that gave me permission to write a book because I always thought I had to like be someone different to write. And I found out I didn't have to be.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Yes. And I love her books. And I would agree. You hear her voice. I've never thought of
Mhm.
that, but that's also why they're so connecting because you're like, oh, that I can hear her voice because that's totally her. I'm really into habits. What's one habit that you would say you have that keeps you grounded and centered that you can't live without?
Yeah, I pray, and I do something every day when I get to my office. I have a little calendar on my desk of like a Bible verse or a little thing for the day, and that grounds me in getting before I start the chaos of the emails and all of this stuff. That helps me just kind of center myself.
Amazing. And you might not have gotten to it yet today, but what is today's?
Oh, well, it's actually, I have it right here. I'm going to show you. Oh, yeah, it's the Jesus calling is what I have. And today is you don't have to be self-sufficient. And so asking for the help that you need instead of assuming or believing that you have to be self-sufficient. Good reminders.
And if you were to talk to Jackie from 20 years ago, I know she'd be 9. If you were to talk to Jackie from 20 years ago, your younger self, what advice would you give to her?
Not to worry so much and just be yourself. I think that would have just been really helpful. I don't know. I was always kind of trying to figure something out or figure out like, well, what does this mean? And where am I going? What am I going to do? And instead, like, just shut up and enjoy it and like just be yourself and it'll all work out would be really helpful.
And my last question, and this is a finish your sentence question.
Okay.
Leadership is
Creating an environment where it's easy and fun to do a hard job.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much for writing this beautiful book. Thank you so much for everything that you're putting out. It really is, a gift that you have, and it's so helpful to other people. It's one of those, I can tell you're so kind, you're so caring, you're so giving, and I'm so grateful to have met you, to know you, to call you a friend, and I'm really grateful for your time here. So thank
Well,
you so
I'm
much.
grateful for you having me on. So thank you so much. And yes, I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this and to know you finally.
Great. And we will talk again because there's more that we're going to talk about to unpack in this book. But until
Perfect.
next time, thank you, Jackie.
Bye, everybody.
If you've ever found yourself thinking, how do we actually get better as an organization? Here's a simple place to look: your managers. Managers have an outsized impact on performance, culture, and whether people stay or leave. But most managers are promoted because they're good at their job, not because anyone taught them how to manage people. That's exactly why we created Manager Essentials. Manager Essentials is a 100% online program designed to support new and emerging managers with real training and one-on-one coaching. It helps strong performers step into people management with more capability and less guesswork. If you're interested in developing managers who can handle the day-to-day realities of leading people, you can learn more at plumleadershipgroup.com. Thanks for tuning in to Grown to Lead, a podcast by the Plum Leadership Group. You can find even more insight and conversation like this one on LinkedIn from the Plum Leadership Group or on Instagram at Plum Leadership. Hear new episodes when they're available by following Grown to Lead wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, you are a masterpiece and a work of art at the same time.